everyone. We are having an iWin session today about addressing scheduling needs and work-based learning. I'm Heather Penczak, Director of Innovation and Implementation with Ed Systems, where iWin, the Illinois Work-Based Learning Network, is housed. And so really want to take a moment today, right in the chat, to introduce yourself, but would really love for you all to share any questions that you have top of mind when you think about work-based learning and you think about scheduling it and navigating all the different moving pieces of scheduling. The job of a master scheduler is no small feat, and just kind of implementing, designing, thinking about work-based learning, thinking about where it fits in the schedule. If you could include that with your introduction, that would be really helpful for myself, and I know our two communities here, to really target to the things that they're sharing and talking through as they share about their successes and their challenges and ways that they really think intentionally about scheduling and work-based learning. A couple of just logistical reminders, muting if you're not speaking. Sometimes you're on your computer and your phone. If I mute you at any point, you can definitely unmute later. You're not blocked forever. It's just navigating the sound there. And then use the chat, right? We very much, I'm going to have very minimal talking here at the top end before I turn it over. And so I'll be looking at that chat, flagging things for our communities who are sharing, responding to things as I'm able. So please do use the chat. I for sure look at it, and I know our presenters can look at it as well as we're going along here. And thank you all. So good to see so many folks in the room. I don't see any questions yet. Not yet. All right. We'll put them in there as you're thinking about them. Really do want to know your questions and make sure that we are responding to the things top of mind for you. Again, for those of you who might be newer to the iWin network, we really are here to highlight and explore those innovative models for work-based learning. We launched back in October of 2020 when we all started panicking about what does it mean to do any of this remote, virtual, still build connections. And from there, we just continue to have really great conversations among communities where we're building those connections. People are sharing their best practices, their learnings, their resources. It really is something important through iWin that we're having communities speak to things they're really doing. What is this looking like in practice? Not theoretically or in an ideal situation, but truly in practice, what do these things look like? Lots of conversations too within this group as we think about work-based learning and getting it off the ground. How is it ultimately towards providing more equitable access, really in a lens too of continuous improvement in that as well. And as we have conversations, sometimes there's policy changes, support things that this group flags that we just kind of continue to lift up as we have agency partners and other organizations joining these conversations as well. We do look at the whole continuum, right? So today you're going to hear about scheduling for work-based learning, and we're not just talking about apprenticeships or internships, right? People are also going to share about doing those site visits or having a guest speaker coming in or thinking about where those are happening. So iWin really is talking about everything happening along the continuum. If you go to our resource hub, we have resources for everything across the continuum, from that initial career awareness to those more intensive experiences along the continuum. I do want to flag here, and I will share this presentation out as a follow-up from this, but recently, and I see a few faces on the call who were at that, we visited Oswego High School. It was our first in-person iWin event. There's going to be more to come of those, which is exciting. So I wrote a blog. It's got all kinds of details and resources that the high school was very gracious in sharing about their student-run credit union that they have. It's inside their school building. They work with their local credit union partner, Earth Mover. And so we got to see the credit union at the school. We got to go to the branch of Earth Mover. And so we really just learned about all the different moving pieces of that. So it's both a course within the high school and also a school-based enterprise, right? A work-based learning, a career development experience really happening inside the school. So I encourage you to check that out. As you think about scheduling, this is something happening within your school day, within your school space. Also, my colleague Danya released a blog and resources and guidance for supporting young women in manufacturing. Again, it talks across the continuum of the different ways to really be intentional to help young women see themselves and connect with women professionals in manufacturing and what that engagement can look like. Our next session coming up is on December 5th. This will be very much experimenting with something on mine and my other colleagues' ends who are going to help facilitate this, but we're going to get into Chat GPT and we're going to do some fun using robots to the rescue to think about how can AI be a thought partner for you as you're thinking about designing work-based learning, asking questions about things. I had it the other day, thought partner with me about how to do a kind of micro internship for students to identify where they're learning math outside the classroom. And it gave me some really thoughtful suggestions that I had to then take my own lens of expertise to, but it had some fun with it. So we'll engage in a workshop and conversations there. By no means am I an expert on that, but we can do some cool things with it. So would encourage you all to register and share that with your colleagues. But goal for today is for me to not talk, to turn it over to our communities here from Rockford Public Schools and Vienna High School. And they're going to share a bit of an overview each, just, a few minutes, each of them kind of giving you all context about their community, their schools, their work-based learning. And then we're going to move into a panel. So I will stop sharing my screen and I have a couple of questions teed up for them, but we'll also turn it to you all to ask questions. So please, again, put those in the chat. Or when we move to our panel discussion here, continue to put those, say them out loud, and just really want to meet you all where you are at. But with that, I will turn it over first to our Vienna community, and then I'll turn it over to Rockford.
Hi, good morning. Leslie Bradley, Director of Student Career Services.
And I'm Rebecca Guest, the Dean of Instruction here at Vienna High School.
I think our superintendent is on as well via phone. There he is.
I am Joshua Stafford, School Superintendent at Vienna. Thanks for the opportunity to get to speak with you guys this morning about work-based learning. We really appreciate it.
So just a quick overview within just a couple of moments here. So we do have those few slides where we've condensed some information, but really working to connect with students that the learning is not just happening within the classroom, but also creating those opportunities outside of the classroom for them. A lot of that is happening in conjunction with our PACE framework, with our plans and the pieces of that we have. And so the PACE framework then also leading into those CCPEs. And so we're really looking at how we can use those two pieces to kind of leverage some of these work-based experiences for students. So right now, primarily our work-based experiences are connected with our classes that we are getting those endorsements in. Those were the places for us to start, if you will, of really some focused, intentional movement with our scheduling to make sure that those students can have those work-based learning experiences connected to get those endorsements.
Yeah, and I would just add, I know that we're kind of clicking through some slides here. So one of the places that I always like to start at, just as you're thinking about work-based learning, right? And I've glanced through our chat here to see who's in this group and what the roles are. And so I know we've got a variety of roles and schools from around the state. And the majority of the roles I see here, right, are falling in that guidance counseling, school counselor, scheduling world. And I lived in that world for a number of years. I was the guy that ran our guidance office, and oh my goodness, it's not an easy task. It's a tall task. I call the master schedule the most important. It's really the most important document that gets put together, certainly for a high school, right? And here's what your master schedule does. It either opens up opportunities for kids or it closes doors for kids. It does those two things. I mean, that's how significant of a document your master schedule is. And it's the most complicated puzzle I've ever had to work on in my entire life, right? A school district budget is like 35 pages now in the state of Illinois, and it's overwhelming spreadsheets and pivot charts and on and on and on and on. It's not easy to deal with. But I still go back to my days in that guidance office to say the most complicated thing I've ever worked on in my life is the master schedule. And so in this new world of trying to integrate work-based learning, it takes a great deal of flexibility in how we think about the master schedule and how we approach it. And I know one of the slides that we have in here, which I think is one that I always come back to, right? Who is the child or children that I love the most? And everybody on this call today has that kid, right? Or those kids. You know who those kids are. Hopefully they're your own children. But if you don't have your own children, right? There are children in your life that you go, yep, those are the kids I love the most. And one of the things that I'm always kind of asking myself in this process, because it is a labor of love, is, is this school good enough for that child? And so that kind of puts a little bit different perspective as we consider being more flexible with master scheduling, thinking out of the box of master scheduling, right? There's this movement nationally called the big blur, if you will. And the big blur is, how are we integrating not just a pre-K 12 experience, but how are we integrating a pre-K 14 experience, and what does early college programming look like and career readiness look like? And a lot of that blur from the K-12 perspective has been, hey, we need to be able to offer dual credit coursework, right? Which has really kind of been taking college and just fitting it in our existing mold, which is doable. But I think the next version or the next phase in that big blur is, are we looking at maybe more of a college-centric scheduling approach as opposed to our traditional high school scheduling approaches that we have? And right, what do those models look like in colleges and universities as we schedule? So I know that you all on this call who live in guidance world are like thinking, get this guy off the call, Heather. Why did you invite this guy here? Because this is not easy work, right? It's impossible with the confines and constraints that we have currently existing, and then to add more things like work-based learning on it, it makes it all the more difficult. But I do want to doable. And part of that is, building a culture around which you can do those things. I know that Leslie, our Director of Student Career Services, was just kind of touching on that third slide in the lineup, if you will. And that's a great list of things that are kind of a framework. And I don't know, our time's pretty limited, but a framework by which to get to these work-based learning conversations, which I think are super helpful. And then I think the fourth slide, Heather, in this kind of just lends itself to partnerships and what do partnerships look like. And these are students who have received the CCPE endorsements, College Career Pathway endorsements, certified by ISB. And there's a ton of partnerships that go behind that. And if we were able to click on that link, which you guys will have these slides, you can click on that link, you'll see those partnerships. So just very briefly, Vienna is, it's not Vienna. I know that you're thinking we're mispronouncing it, but if you live in the state of Illinois, it really is Vienna, I promise. Now, if you're anywhere else on the face of the planet, it's Vienna. So now you all know, you're real Illinoisans. There's a lot of pieces, and our high school master schedule is also available on our website, on the high school website, viennahs.com. You'll see that our school district is rural, but it covers over 300 square miles, parts of 4 counties, and 3 community college districts. So we're geographically the 19th largest school district in the state of Illinois. So just getting kids to and from school is a little bit of a lift in terms of logistics and scheduling, right? Bus routes, 5 buildings, things of that nature. And then to add work-based learning in on top of that, we run buses like we make a trip around the world every 10 days in school buses, if you count the mileage up. So we've had to, it's not just a scheduling issue, it's also a logistical bus issue. How do you get those kids to and from these places? I think that one important thing is a lot of people are going to say, well, it's one thing for us to mess with the schedule, and if we can overcome that hurdle, that'll be a miracle. But the second miracle is how in the world do we afford transportation for these kids to get to and from all of these experiences? For example, we bus kids every morning 25, well, probably 30 miles to our north to the Illinois Labor and Training Facility. And then, right, so that we take juniors at 7 a.m., so that's 30 miles there and then back. So we're at 60. We pick up seniors, we take them there and come back. So in a given day, we're over 100 miles just for one work-based learning experience on a school bus every single day. So in the Illinois transportation claim, you can claim those miles for career tech ed purposes. So we get reimbursed by the state at really one of the highest reimbursement rates, because CTE claimable miles are even reimbursed at a higher rate than just regular transportation, getting kids to and from school. So I think it's important, right? It's like if you live in guidance, scheduling world, CTE world, wherever it is, we don't always know all the funding models. And so one of the things that we run into is, oh my goodness, how do we fund that? Well, you can sit down with your business office and say, hey, don't we actually get to claim those miles? And they're the highest reimbursement rate. So there's lots of little logistical pieces in it in which we're doing this. But yes, we bus kids all over the place. We run programs for our early educator program to where they get out into our grade schools and they actually are, in essence, become student teachers, back and forth to Ingram Barge and a variety of things like that. So there's a quick snapshot. Miss Bradley or Miss Guest may want to add more to that, but I'll hush from that point. So
Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Leslie and Rebecca. And I know we'll have some questions here too. Maybe I'll turn to Rockford, Jessica, introduce yourself and share a bit about Rockford, and then we'll go to questions here. And again, please, if you're having those, as you just heard from Diana, if you have some questions, please put those in the chat, and we can even start with those, right? Really want to make this to address what is top of mind for you all. But Jessica, I will turn to you.
Hi, I'm Jessica Hayes. I am the Work-Based Learning Coordinator for Rockford Public School District, District 205. We have just about 29,000 students K-12 in our district. Third largest in the state of Illinois. We have 5 high schools, 4 traditional and 1 community education center. You can move to the next slide, Heather, if you would like. So our high schools, all 5 of our high schools learn on what we call our Academy Pathway model. So they have their traditional principal, and then we have an academy coach and academy principals for each of ours and each of our 4 traditional high schools. And then Roosevelt's a little bit different, but all 4 of our high schools follow our Academy Pathway models. Next slide. These are the current pathways and pathway endorsements that we offer across all of our high schools. We have a very diverse group of offering. All of our students will participate in work-based learning, and by their sophomore year, they will pick what pathway they want to focus on. And then they will get elective coursework. We call them P1, P2, P3 classes. They will get those classes starting their sophomore year through senior year, hoping for them to graduate with either dual credit, a certificate, an internship, an apprenticeship. All the goals of us in the College and Career Readiness Department is to make them college, career, and life ready by the time they graduate high school. Next slide. 95% of our students will all get experiences, grades 9 through 12. That's my goal as a work-based learning coordinator. I manage all of our work-based learning across all 5 high schools, our community partners, all of our academy events, in order for our students to get out to see the real world of work while they are out on their experiences they have. Next slide. You can kind of skip a couple. What we've based our work-based learning on is the work-based learning continuum. So a lot of those resources that you saw on the first slide, we've based a lot of our work off of that PACE framework, the Power Act, the work-based learning continuum, and we have divided it up into things that we feel as a district are the best career exploration events. And each year they get a little bit more in depth based on the grade. So we have identified 4 key work-based learning experiences. The freshman year, they go through our Academy Expo. Sophomore year, they participate in a sophomore site visit. Their junior year, we're doing junior job shadows, mock interviews, additional career exploration. And by their senior year, we're trying to develop them to either go into a capstone project. I have a couple that are doing internships right now, which are amazing stories. I could go on for days about these students that are in the internships right now. But you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Heather. So our Academy Expo is for all of our high school freshmen. There are just over 2,000 of them that went through it this year. They come out of their classes. They're only out there for a couple hours. We divide them out in groups and they go back. We use it as some of our high schools use it as a good day to like celebrate students. They'll come back and they'll do some motivational speakers, get them all excited about their career pathways. And then after the expo, this year had over 700 volunteers at the expo and just over 2,000 freshmen. I had 109 booths. We break it out per academy. So the students get to visit. You can kind of see in this picture, the yellow is our service academy, green's our production academy. Then they move to our business academy and then they move to health. And the goal is for them to get to explore all the different career options that are in that academy, that pathway. You can go to the next slide. The next sophomore year, we really focus on site visits. It gets a little more in depth. They will go out in their pathway. Basically, what we look at is the number of students that are registered in that pathway. So for example, my goal right now, I have 101 students in my construction pathway that are juniors that I have to get out for a job shadow. Those juniors were sophomores at one point in time, so they go out for a site visit. The goal is that each year in each different work-based learning that they participate in is more in-depth experience that gives them a real good idea of what the reality of that job is. Next slide. The junior job shadows, we did a few before COVID, but then last year we really did our most robust one that we've done yet. We did get over 1,400 juniors out for a job shadow last year. And so what we do is, as a team, is we work together and we basically assign a bus a day. We've developed what we've called Academy themed job shadow weeks. So for example, my production academy goes out the week of December 4th. I have just over 350 students in my production academy that will get a job shadow that week. We base it on, like, we have engineering, manufacturing, construction, industrial tech, and transportation tech. Where we'll take those spots and I'll say, like, I have wonderful community partners in Rockford that are just amazing, but it's a lot of work to manage them and they are very involved. But what we do is they will tell me they can take 5 students, 10 students, whatever amount of students they can take. Then I go through and I build out a weekly schedule of East High School, Guilford High School, Jefferson High School, Auburn High School. Here's your bus, here's your locations, here's your pathways. They assign the students and then the students get out for a 3 to 4 hour time frame in a job shadow. We pull them from their pathway class. We pull the numbers from their pathway classes, but the students do come out, do pretty much an entire day for a job shadow. We are really trying to build a culture around work-based learning on how important it is. And the more students we get out, the more students come back and tell their stories of the job shadows. And there's seniors that are telling juniors, you have to go. This is such a great experience. Students will come back and they'll say, well, now I know why I need geometry. I have to read a blueprint. I have to be able to read a micrometer. I have to be able to read a caliper. You know, I mean, they really see the reality of why that classroom is important. So we really push this culture in the schools of the pathways to show that this is why your students are coming out. I know they're missing your calculus class, but they're getting out to see the reality of the work. In reality, it's just one day, because each student gets just one job shadow. So they're really just getting pulled out for about one day. Next slide. This is the one we're really trying to delve into is internships. There's a lot that's tough behind internships with transportation. We can't provide a lot of transportation for our students with internships. So a lot of it is them providing their own transportation. What we really worked with when scheduling wise is trying to build it around a senior schedule. We don't have block scheduling. So what we are trying to do is build it. Some of our seniors don't go to school till 3rd hour. The students I have interning out right now, I worked with their counselor. We work with the master scheduler and say we can maneuver a gym class. So they can take gym 8th hour instead of taking it 2nd hour. So that student is now interning 1st through 4th hour. They end up at school at 11 o'clock and the one student's working from 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. at a manufacturing site. And then he goes to school after that. And by doing the 60 hours in one semester, he gets the 1 classroom credit each semester for the internship. So internships is really something that we're really trying to get to. It's hard to build it out for 2,000 students, but we're getting there. We hopefully will get 20 to 30 out this year. And the goal is each year to continue to grow the internships to offer more towards every student. That is a really high overview of what we do. There's a lot. But that I wanted to make it quick to make it open for questions. So that's a real high overview of what we do here.
No, it was super helpful. Thank you, Jessica, for that. And I know there was one question from Erica about, are the students going out individually or as a class?
So basically we pull the number. So for example, I have 270 students in my nursing pre-med pathway. So I will go out and identify the site locations that will host my students. Luckily, we have 3 pretty large healthcare systems here in Rockford that are pretty supportive. One of them took 75 students last year. So what we do is we open it up to the students. Most of the schools will allow the students to actually pick what job shadow they want to go on. And it's offered to the students that are in that pathway class. So if they're currently taking engineering manufacturing, they are offered an engineering manufacturing job shadow. They can sign up, like I right now probably have 11 different location options for them to sign up for. They can sign up, that's a first come, first serve, but they sign up for it, but then they take a bus. So for example, the one day we have a really awesome East Rock Industrial Park where I have 6 locations that are hosting students. So I take a bus from each one of our schools and each site's taking 10 students. So I'm basically taking a bus and I'm dropping 10 at one location, 10 at another, 10 at another, 10 at another. They job shadow, that bus goes and picks them up and picks up the 10, the 10, the 10, the 10, and then brings them back to school. So we do that we do that 4 days out of the week out of all 4 of our academies.
Well, thank you all again for the context, the overview. I think I've pinned you all. We'll see. I don't know if everybody's getting the same view. This is my first actual virtual panel, I guess I've done here. So trying something out, but I have a question to start us off, or I don't know, I saw lots of folks kind of come on screen. So if someone has a burning question, I do want to open it up to you all.
So I have a question, if I may, Jessica. I heard you say that at your school district, you're not on a block schedule, correct?
Correct.
So here at my school district, Homewood Flossmoor, we are on a block schedule. So in terms of scheduling, are you currently scheduling where the students are going to class one day a week for their work-based learning experience, and then they're in the field the remaining of the week? And what does that look like?
Well, no, for job shadows, it's just they come out of just one day of class. They get out one day, that's it for the class. So the one junior, one student. So I have 1,400 juniors. All 1,400 will get one job shadow. So they're pulled out of one day of class for the job shadows. For internships, what we're doing right now, what we're currently doing, I only have a few, but we're doing them during their school day. So they'll come out only basically first through third hour, or they'll go out 6th through 8th hour at the end of the day. They have to meet 60 hours. So what we've identified, as long as they do a minimum of 4 hours a week within that 16 weeks of semester, they can easily reach that 60 credit hours. So as long as they reach that, we don't need, the biggest thing is we cannot pull them out of a classroom. I cannot pull them out of classroom. So what we're trying to do is get in front of juniors so that when they register for their senior year, they can register for those internships, and we can put that internship in their class schedule. So what we're doing is basically building out their schedule so it fits within. Then they get assigned the internship class. So it shows that they're in an internship class, so they're accounted for. They're just not actually going in the class until like 4th hour. But it's not a full, I mean, the internships those are something we're really, it would be great if we could do block scheduling because it would be a lot easier, but that's just not happening. So we're doing the best that we can to fit it within their schedules currently.
Okay. All right. I would be curious to know if anyone on the call is has a similar structure, but you have block schedule in your school district, and what that looks like for you in terms of scheduling.
I can chime in, and I have Dana on this call too. She works at our district as an internship coordinator. I'm not going to have a perfect answer to your question, but we have block scheduling, and we are in the midst of trying to reimagine our internship scheduling because we have currently, our structure is we have an internship class on the books, like the kids sign up for an internship class. But we have found it to be very restrictive because it then limits who can have access to these internships, when they can go to these internships, and it really locks it down and also locks the teacher into that block of time always, so that they can't go out in the places and the ways that they need to. So we're trying to reimagine, and we're still visioning this, but we're trying to reimagine a more flexible model where we do perhaps some summits with all internship participants, say quarterly, where we deliver some work-based learning instruction, perhaps, where they can earn their dual credit certifications. Perhaps there's an asynchronous course that kids have to complete before starting an internship to get the dual credit work-based learning stuff that they need to do to get the dual credit. So we're trying to envision a less restrictive model where it's not a scheduled class in the day, because kids don't know what they're signing. If they sign up for an internship class, they don't know what they're signing up for. They're just like, yeah, I'd like an internship. And then we end up chasing an internship for a student who may actually not be prepared for an internship. So we want to turn the model on its head and have students pursuing already established experiences, and then create a more flexible model during the day to open up time for the teacher and to not lock a kid into a certain period of the day.
And Tracy, what school district are you with?
Say again, Hope, sorry.
What school district are you with?
Grays Lake, District 127, up near Wisconsin.
And a lot of what we've done on the internship side is we've had a lot of our community partners have had a lot of flexibility. The ones that the students are interning at, they'll take a morning or afternoon. So that's been really helpful in having that flexibility with the community partner. Our education internships that we do internally are great because we use our own early, we have 29,000 kids in our district. So we have a lot of options for early childhood. And so our education intern students, they get to intern at like our internal schools. So that's a lot of flexibility in that as well. So that's where we've been with the internships, there's been so much, we have to have a lot of flexibility in them in order to get them out for that amount of time.
And I think it's a great point about there's the internship course that can be helpful for some students, right? But as we do this and as we think about access, equity, scale, like it can't just be the course that is the model for internships, right? Because that'll work for a chunk of them, but then there has to be the 6 a.m. Like some of these employers like need you at 6 a.m., right?
That's right.
And courses don't start at 6 a.m. That would be a very early day for a teacher, which is already early enough to get started there. So, you know, I'm wondering, unless there's another question, I think one of the pieces I hear a lot about work-based learning and scheduling is just this general competition and scheduling for a student, right? So they have their high school graduation requirements, academic requirements, right? And then there's work-based learning as well. And you both spoke to this a bit, but I'm just wondering if you could offer kind of some additional
what is our
advice or thoughts
because
there.
this happens everywhere,
I
right? And
think
I don't know if every
if I muted you, sorry, just imagine the noise there. But just curious how you help students, right, think about those different pieces, or how you think about managing all those different pieces for a student. But I hear about competition and scheduling quite a bit for young people and for schools themselves.
So
I
we
ask-
definitely do have that competition in scheduling. That's going to happen. So we have started really trying to focus again with our freshmen when they come in to talk to them about what their career plans might be. Then sophomore year, when we're really looking at that scheduling, getting them to focus at that point on a career path, so that their junior and senior year, if we offer dual credit that fits into that career path, we are prioritizing that. So we do offer the CNA program, we offer dual credit nursing, they're getting college credit for the construction class, college credit for social work. But whatever career path, if we have dual credit for it, we want to prioritize that, which does mean, of course, that work-based learning can become tricky to schedule. But that's also why we try to incorporate those work-based learning experiences as part of those classes. So for instance, our education and nursing classes meet first thing in the morning, so that if those students need to be at the nursing home or they need to be at their school where they're doing their work-based learning experience ahead of the 8 o'clock schedule, then we've built in that time for that to happen. So that does give us that flexibility. We also make sure that those classes are not conflicting with a math or an English class. So by blocking off those hours to start the morning, we have found that gives us the most success. The same thing happens with our construction class, where kids are leaving really actually ahead of when teachers even show up at school. They're leaving to go to that site. So that's how we're getting around with some of that scheduling conflict now, is recognizing that we may have to put some of that ahead of the normal school day.
I would say a lot of it, we've been doing Academy Pathways for quite some time now. So it's a lot of it is embedded into our Academy Pathway classes. So like our construction students, they'll take like an introduction to construction their sophomore year, and then they take a construction 1 class where they actually build walls inside their classroom for a habitat class. For Habitat House, and then their senior year, our seniors are going out and actually building Habitat for Humanity houses. So they're getting that experience. It's built into their schedule, into those pathway classes. Same thing with like dual credit and engineering and their CNA classes. It's all built into our P1, P2, P3 classes. So when the students, like their freshman year, they take what we call a college and career readiness class, CCR, it's like a seminar class, where they learn all about different careers, and they learn about all the different academies and different pathways, what you need to do in that pathway, what classes you need to take, what classes you're going to take. And then they enroll in those their sophomore year, and then they get to, so if they pick construction, they will get their core content classes, but then they get the construction classes built into their day. Same thing like business. We have graphic design, we have IT, those are all built into their pathway classes. So they actually, the master scheduler will schedule them in at each school, schedules them into that class. So that's how our model works, because it's built into their day. So like machine tool at Jefferson is a 2-hour block. So the students are actually in that class for a 2-hour block, but that's their pathway class. for work-based learning, we
That's-
really are. Yeah, so like for work-based learning, we're really trying to build it around the culture of college and career life ready and work-based learning. Like this is getting your students out, and a student voice is always your best when it comes to getting students out. When they come back and they say, I had the most amazing experience, and guess what? I asked for an internship, and guess what? I got one. Not only am I getting classroom credit for it, I'm getting paid for an intern. I have a 17-year-olds that got internships from their job shadows, who did them over the summer, got paid, and are now interning their senior year through the whole year, getting paid and getting classroom credit for it. So those are your best. Those are the student voice is always your best. And so teachers, if we ever get pushback of kids out of classes, that's what we're building as a culture of why academy pathways are so important, why work-based learning is so important, because any high school kid's going to tell you, why do I need geometry? Why am I in this class? But then when they go out and they see it, they're like, oh, now I know why I get it. We also take a lot of investment in taking our teachers out. Our teachers that go out and chaperone a lot of our events, they participate in the day of a lot of it, and they see, okay, this is great. I need to bring this back to the classroom. So we really try to create a culture inside the school of how important getting the students out. We're not telling to get them out like every day we're not pulling them from classes every single day, but for some of these smaller work-based learning things, they're getting out for a couple hours. But all their classes are built into their pathway classes.
Jessica, I had a quick question for you.
Mhm.
And you said you're not on the block, and so you do like a double period then for some of those pathway classes. Is that still enough time? I'm trying to wrap my brain around because I'm doing the master schedule here. Is there a good chunk of time that gets kids out and really engaged in that internship process? What does that chunk of time look like?
So that's the hard part with internships right now. We're just dabbling our feet into these because there's so much to try and work around. And so we're as a district right now really just trying to we're starting in it. So what we've done is the students that have been offered internships, we are working it into their schedule the part of it, the requirement in order for them to participate is they have to be on track to graduate, and they have to have the credits to graduate, and they also have to be able to fit it in their schedule. So if I pull like the one student that's out doing this manufacturing internship, he literally was at school for like 3 hours, basically, because all he needed was like government econ, a senior English class. He had a PE class. The rest of his class were all elective classes. So he was really he only needed to be in 2 of those classes. So what we did is we took his schedule and said, okay, your first and second hour, really, you don't need him to graduate, and we can move him down into 7th and 8th hour. So he is in an internship. He's assigned to an internship class, first, second, and third hour. And then 4th through 8th hour, he gets we moved his traditional classes. The other student, he was already out 7th and 8th hour. He already had early out. So he just decided to enroll and accept that internship. And now instead of just leaving school at the end of 6th hour lunch, he goes out and does his internship 6th, 7th, and 8th hour.
So you actually put that in his schedule and use the
Yes.
course code or the state code for
Yes, there's a course
internship.
code for it. And my master scheduler at the district-wide is amazing. I don't know how she does all she does. She's just a very organized person, and she's great. But I work with her right now for her and I and the counselors like each of the counselors at the school to work with the students to make sure. Now, if a student has a class that they have to take and they need that class to graduate, unfortunately, I cannot put that internship into their schedule. Now, if they choose to do one outside of school time, then that's something we can work on them getting individual credit for that outside of school time. But there is a couple of students that were not able to do an internship because they needed to take classes to graduate. Because number one, that's the most important part, is for them to get those classes first.
Thank you.
Most of the students' experiences are taking place for internship during the school day, if I hear you correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I should go down this rabbit hole, Heather, or not, but we are presenting this. We just started this summer, a work study program. So it was first offered initially to seniors. We had 115 students enroll in it over the summer. And basically we have 3 job coaches that are managing a student caseload from each one of our high schools. And we actually, those job coaches go out to where our students are working because of these certain circumstances, because there are students that have to work. There are students that don't have transportation. It's a very, you know, we're a very high poverty school district. A lot of our kids rely on our transportation. So, and a lot of our students have to work in order to provide for their families. So they can't participate in these type of experiences. So, in the internships, they still get the job shadows, they get everything else, but they actually are, it's not necessarily an internship is not available for them. So this work study program is basically a student that is currently working. Our job coaches will go out and once a semester, if then they earn 3 employment competency badges, they will get 1 classroom credit. So we looked at the 10 employability skills, and those are what we use as the badges. So if a student is actually reached, you know, they've completed the status of being able to communicate well at the company, at the business. We have Beefaroo, McDonald's, I mean, bowling alleys, nursing homes, anywhere these students are at work, they can enroll in this program. The job coaches help them manage these badges. Once they earn 3 badges a semester, they get a classroom credit for it. So I think Jefferson is up to 75. Guilford, we're dangling right around the 200 student enrollment right now for students that are getting these credits. I didn't want to go down too far with that one because we could talk about that for a while too, but it's amazing. It's great. I mean, we now have juniors enrolling in it. So yeah.
No, thank you. And I shared the link to register to that conference. And I know there's the question about qualifying for an endorsement, and it's not quite there yet, right? In terms of a career development experience as part of an endorsement, but I think it's something that is being explored.
Did you answer that question, Heather, the CC?
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it does, but I mean, it should, but I don't think it does right now, but the right now, it's just basically the students that we've learned that we have to go to the students. We can't have them come to us. So if we can go to them and help them, I mean, the students are thriving in this program. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's the next layer of those technical kind of industry focus pieces that could be embedded within there, but I think there's a there. And I would welcome, so this is building on work that stemmed out of Peoria. It started back in like 2019 or something. There's a lot of curricular resources and assessments and again, it's aligned, like Jessica said, to those 10 essential skills. I'll drop my email in the chat, but they're free, open resources. So I very much encourage you to check those out and think about, to Jessica's point, like how do you engage the young people in internships who can't leave their part-time job for a temporary internship, but should be validated for the essential skills that they're developing throughout there. And I know in Rockford, one of the big pieces was like their supervisors were like, this has actually provided a better way for me to talk to young people about how they are and are not performing. But I wonder too, I don't know, Leslie or Rebecca, if you had thoughts too about those number of hours for an experience like this, because I know it could, you know, what is the magic number per day? I'm sure there's maybe research out there, but.
So with our juniors and seniors, we're trying to get them to complete 20 hours a semester of job shadowing. And if they do that job shadowing outside of the school hours and it aligns with their career path, we're paying them a stipend for that through some grant funding that we have. So it's not sustainable without further grant funding, but those students are getting paid. So we're trying to, as much as possible, utilize some of our local businesses. So a lot of our nursing students are getting placed with a supported living facility here in town, or at our grade schools for community events. So our students who are wanting to be teachers can go after school when a community event is happening, and they can assist with that. And so it is difficult, as everyone knows, when students are missing class for large chunks of time. If we could coordinate something that was happening on a more scheduled format, maybe, but by giving the students the opportunity after school, they're really taking advantage of bigger chunks of time, and then taking a little bit of ownership for that too. So yeah, I mean, that's been a huge benefit for them, getting that stipend money to do the job shadowing, but we're really seeing that that's motivating them to be invested in it.
And it helps kind of cover some of those transportation costs, some of those barriers, or remove some of those barriers that might be in place that would keep them from going and doing something like that. So that's part of our goal with that too.
Pausing to see, I don't see questions in the chat. Not sure if anyone has one. One of mine was going to be, you all talk a lot about your guidance counselor, your master scheduler, your teachers, right? I'm curious what kind of teaming or training or support or conversations that you do, because this is not happening with one individual person or even a few people, right? There's a lot of people involved in making all of this happen. I'm just curious about what those conversations look like, any sort of kind of consistent engagements that you have or training or anything to really make this a culture, right, of making this happen and not just a one-off here and there as you can.
I would say that the development of our master's schedule, right, that process has drastically changed over the last decade, and what that looks like. It's driven not just by a simple head count in each grade level, but it's driven much more a far more in-depth criteria. For example, we have college, what we call college preparatory and college ready English classes, freshman, sophomore, junior year. And so that's driven by really what our community college partners define as college ready and college preparatory. And so we have to know those head counts, like how many sections of each of those do we need at whatever grade level. And we really need to know those head counts as soon as possible. It's not something that we can necessarily wait on until May. And so our guidance office staff works closely on all the assessment pieces, gathers that data, gathers teacher feedback in that process to ensure that we're not just doing it based on the test score, but we're also doing it based on our expert input that actually is our boots on the ground with those students. So, you know, it's really important to continue to do those things, but it's almost like you've got to accelerate that timetable and get all of those folks that work in those respective departments to collaborate together. It really is set down and this has to happen before this can happen, right? What are the things that have to happen in what order? And I think that takes a comprehensive group discussion, because while I might be the director of student career services like Leslie, right? So it makes sense to me that I want to ensure that our nursing students, for example, have access to the clinical hours that they need as part of the course that they're going to take. Well, has the guidance office calculated for that in that master schedule, and what does it look like? And there are points of no return, if you will, in that timeline. And so it's really important, right, that student career services office is working directly with your guidance office, working directly with your assessment people, working directly with your early college people to really sit down and say, what does our current timeline look like? Is there a way to revamp this in such a way that as these things happen, and that's a train that leaves the station once a year. That master schedule, right, is a train that leaves the station once a year. And once it leaves the station, it's really hard to ever get back to the station to revamp it mid-year, if not impossible. And so I hope that that's helpful to some degree. And others may have better input than I on that. But, you know, if you can get that foundational timeline figured out, it will make building these things out over the next 5-10 years much easier than maybe they are now.
I mean, a lot of this stuff was built out prior, like the master scheduling and all the pathway courses. We've been doing, like I said, we've been doing the academy pathways for 10, almost 11 years. So a lot of this stuff has been built out for some time frame. The biggest thing is we have revamped our pathways as they come and go. Like we're phasing out a kinesiology pathway, but we're adding a mental wellness pathway and a hospitality pathway. So there's things in our community that come and go, and those were the classes that change. But the counselors at the school level and the masters, we have a master scheduler at each school that helps schedule the students into their pathway. Once they choose their academy pathway, then they get assigned that pathway coursework P1 through P3. So that's all done at the school level once the student picks their pathway.
So we have just a few moments here. I was going to do my, what advice do you have for schools looking to do this kind of work? But I do want to open it up too if there's another top of mind burning question from you all here. Or something, Vienna or Rockford, that you were like, you didn't ask this question. You should have asked this. We need to share this.
Well, I just want to ask a follow-up question because I heard Jessica kept referring to P1, P2, P3. So I'm sure you're referring to the 3-course sequence that's required for the pathway. So when you, so the student is taking one pathway course each school year from their sophomore through their senior year, correct?
Yes.
All right. And
So,
go
yeah,
ahead.
so like, I mean, this is like what we show our community partners. I don't know if you can see it very well, but we give our community partners. And so like, for example, in like our, let's say our manufacturing engineering, their PLTW classes, they'll get like intro to engineering design, principles of engineering, and like Guilford is a focus on, I think, environmental engineering. That varies by each school, but they get the different pathway sequence course sophomore through senior year.
So from the guidance perspective, when the guidance team are promoting the courses, are they promoting the pathway or are they promoting the singletons? Just to make sure you have fidelity with the pathway.
Yeah, so that's why we have fidelity with the pathways, because they're promoting the pathway. The goal, and they, our students could change once in their sophomore year, they could change their pathway, but after their sophomore year, it's hard to change their pathway because then they lose out on that pathway course sequence. But we don't want to lock them into a pathway. So they do have options. So if you're in the, let's say you're in the business academy and you want to take a production class, you have the option potentially to take a machine tool class, but that class is first and foremost offered to the students in that pathway. If there happens to be availability, they could take that. There's a lot of kids in production and like manufacturing that also want to take a business class. So as long if there's openings in those classes, they could take those classes as well. But when the counselors, when they are talking about it, we also have academy coaches in each one of our schools. They're our biggest cheerleaders in each school. So they go out and they talk with teachers. We have PLCs where teachers that are in that academy meet every week and they talk about all the different things going on in that academy. That also brings in your core content teachers. So really what we try to do is get the core content teachers to know what our pathways are as well. So they know why a student is joining a pathway and what those pathways are. So it's really, really trying to build that culture from the ground up of everybody knowing that not only do we have an English class, but they also have, they have their pathway classes as well.
Okay, thank you. So your academy coaches are different from your guidance counselors?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. So we have multiple guidance counselors in each school because we have such a high there's so many students. So they're assigned so each academy or each pathway has a production academy has a guidance counselor, and then they're broken out by student names. But each one of our 5 high schools have an academy coach, which that academy coach focuses on work-based learning within that school. So I focus on the district level work-based learning, but I put together a schedule for all of our juniors for all 5 high schools. But then my academy coach at that high school will then work with the teachers to assign the students to that job shadow. So they're in the schools every day for the academies. I am overarching for the district.
Okay, so Jessica, I'm going to be emailing you so we can talk at length.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime.
Anything else kind of in these last moments here? I'll put it to you both, right? Communities, like something that you didn't get to share, but you think is important for people to know about your scheduling and work-based learning, or again, advice, things that you might have folks just kind of like take away with from today as they go back and start to do all the like calculus. I'm thinking of that one image where they have like math equations all over their head and they're like, I don't even know how to begin. What kind of open up to you all to close us out here?
So as Jessica was talking about the academy advisors, we have something similar to that too, which has been very helpful to us, and that's career coaches. And so it sounds like they're serving in the same capacity. So all of our students have an assigned career coach. And freshman year, sophomore year, we have our numbers small enough to where we have one freshman career coach for all freshmen. Okay, so that's 108 students, right? So we're small, about 360 students in the high school. When they hit the junior year, their career coaches become assigned to them based more on what they wish to do. So that we have all of our healthcare tracked students at the junior and senior level with our nursing instructor for that. So I think that's really important. And that's a piece that both schools are trying to utilize, is really putting people in that path for those students to have that connection with, to help guide them on that path.
And I saw the question, and the career coaches are teachers, so they receive training and a stipend each year for the work that they do, because it is a little bit of extra work too. But we again, with being small, with having limited resources, we have to get creative with what we do, and so we do use teachers for those career coaches. I think one thing too, before Jessica speaks, it was exciting to hear Jessica talk about all these amazing things that are going on at her district, and they've been doing this for 10 or 11 years. Well, we're on about year 4 or so. And so I'm just really excited because we're listening to her going, wow, that is so cool. Leslie and I are taking notes. So if you feel like this is daunting or you feel like this is overwhelming, just know that you have to start somewhere. And that what you start with year 1 is not going to be what that program looks like at year 3 and then year 6. And then hopefully where Jessica is, but you're still, Jessica, right? You guys are still learning and you're still growing and you're still changing, and what's next? So you just get started, and it's not perfect, and you learn and you grow and you reevaluate and you just continue to change that up. So I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Jessica,
The first year we did job shadows, I think we maybe got 100 kids out, maybe 100 at most. And last year we did get over 1,400 out, and it's a lot of work, but it's great. And I think my biggest thing is that we tend to forget that, especially if we are so big, that sometimes we forget the student voice. And that is the one thing I've learned in this job. I am not in a school every day, but I'll tell you what, these students that have, that did this internship, they came to my expo and worked the booth at the freshman expo at the company they're interning at. And the 2 students that came in, they just, it gives me the lights on their faces. They are just like, the one kid is 17. He's been offered a full-time job post-graduation. He's 2 classroom credits for his internship. He's in the work study program. They're going to pay for his full-time to go training to be a machinist and then go to engineering school. And the look on the student's face is just, the work is stressful and it is a lot and it takes a lot of time and you got to have a lot of patience. But when you see the students that come out of a job shadow and they're just like, oh my God, I think I can do this. This is something I can do. And I didn't know that existed. I can't wait. I don't have to go to college to do that. Wow. I mean, that's ultimately what makes the work worthwhile. So if you're in a position where you're not in front of the kids all the time, find time to get in front of the kids, because man, they tell great stories. They all have great experiences, and it just ultimately makes all the stress well worth it.
And Heather, I think we're at time here, but I would add this: what is that starting point? And we started right with doing early college dual credit 15 years ago, and we offer over 125 dual credit college credit hours on our high school master schedule. So for anybody who's gone to look at that high school master schedule on Vienna's the high school website, there, anything highlighted in blue is a dual credit course on the high school master schedule, 125 credit hours. That's where we started at. If I had to do over again, I wouldn't have started there. And that's great and wonderful, and we're thrilled. Like 18% of our senior class graduates, associate's degree, it's good stuff. But I would start with ISAC's PACE framework, because I really think, right, if you don't have a comprehensive career framework laid out, all of this just becomes a helter-skelter one-off. Yeah, we want kids to do this, or we want kids to do this, and you don't serve all kids, and you don't really get everything built into that scope and sequence that needs to be built out. And ISAC's super helpful in coming in and helping you start that discussion. And of course, I know that we've gone around and helped other schools with that training as well. And there are a lot of people who do good work there. But that I think is a great starting point to eat the elephant in the room, if you will.
No, it's an excellent flag. And, PACE has been updated, right? So the work-based learning continuum we've been talking about, and PACE, they are very much aligned, right? So all those components are in there. It's a really robust kind of holistic view of what it means to be moving a student along the path starting at 6th grade, right? I know some schools, I saw some Ridgewood folks on here, have a K-12 PACE framework too, right? Because this starts I got a 6-year-old who already is telling me she is an artist who will never get married and is going to live on her own with some cats. So it starts early and you have to keep navigating that, right? But she's also a little creator, so maybe manufacturing in her future. Anyways, so just thank you all so much again. Leslie, Rebecca, Josh, Jessica, thank you for all of your insights today. And I know too, if you all have more questions, these folks are very, very willing to continue to talk and answer those. The best thing we can do is really learn from each other, and it's all going to be a bit different in our spaces, but we don't have to start at square one. We can start kind of informed by what others have done and kind of go from there and keep sharing. So just thank you all so much again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.